study guide regarding pain control theories, after you've discussed the physiological structures involved in pain control, there's a section that talks about the theories, and I wanted to just briefly review those to help you out with these notes on the study guide. The first one is the specificity theory of pain. This occurs when, this theory states that pain occurs when specific nociceptors in the periphery are stimulated. That stimulation then sends an impulse to the brain along specific nervous pathways that then will result in pain. So there's a direct connection between a stimulation of a specific receptor and pain, is this theory. This was the theory for quite a while, but there are some significant weaknesses to this. First of all, it doesn't explain why phantom pain exists. If there has to be a specific nerve to stimulate the brain to perceive pain, and there is no actual physical nerve, then why does somebody still have pain? It also doesn't explain why people react differently to pain. If there's just a nerve or a pain nerve, then and you stimulate it and you have pain, we should all perceive that pain the same. And then obviously there is the study of Pavlov, which says that shows that some animals can be trained to react favorably to a noxious stimuli. So retraining the brain and how it perceives pain. And this theory doesn't explain why that takes place. So while it was a good start, it doesn't explain everything about pain. The next theory that developed then was the pattern theory of pain. And this theory says that the intensity evokes a pattern of impulses that is interpreted by the brain as pain. So the more intense the pain, the more impulses in the pattern, and then the perception of pain is increased. It denies the existence of any pain receptors, this theory does, and that pain occurs when the rate and pattern of sensory input exceeds a particular threshold. Bottom line, it states that slow-conducting nerve fibers can carry pain, fast-acting nerve fibers carry other sensations. Normally, the fast-conducting fibers will override the pain. Under pathological conditions, then the intensity of the stimulation in the slow system becomes much greater and dominates the fast system, therefore resulting in pain. There are a couple problems with this theory then as well. It's very general and doesn't get real specific about explaining the pain. It also doesn't account for physiological evidence of a higher degree of receptor fiber specialization. So we see that there is receptor fiber specialization. So different fiber receptors are different, and it doesn't explain why that would be if pain is just based on a pattern of impulses. So then years later, the next theory to develop then was the gate control, where it tried to integrate the specificity and pattern theories. It stated that pain perception starts being operated at the spinal level. It proposes a gate mechanism of explaining pain, and this gate is located in the dorsal horn. I'll show a picture of that in a minute, and only allows one sensation at a time to pass through the brain. So you're either going to perceive pain, or you can perceive touch. So if you have pain and you superimpose touch on that, like you rub a painful spot, the brain can only perceive one sensation, and the stronger and faster sensation is going to get to the brain, and that's the sensation that you'll perceive. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute here. So if we look to a little schematic of this, the gate control theory is stating that we have A beta fibers, and they carry impulses of pressure, touch, cold, heat, proprioception, just different sensory input comes in on A betas. Pain is transmitted along A delta and C fibers, okay, and that you learned up above or previously in the reading. So this part here is our spinal cord area. We said that this takes place at the spinal cord level. This pain detector is really the substantia gelatinosum. And then this structure over here is going to the brain, the periaqueductal gray matter, and the thalamus up here. So let's follow pain according to the gate control theory. Let's say we have a pain stimulus and it comes in along our A delta fibers, and it wants to pass through the spinal cord level, through the substantia gelatinosum structure, and up to the brain where it's perceived as pain. All right. If we want to block this pain pathway, the gate control theory stating that the brain can only perceive one stimulation at a time, we could stimulate the A beta fibers with touch or cool or warmth, electric stim, and when we stimulate this, it actually causes what we call a gate to close on this pain signal, all right? And then the sensation coming along this A beta fiber is able to go up to the brain. I told you that there was a structure here called the substantia gelatinosum in the spinal cord, and there's a cross-sectional view of the substantia gelatinosum. So this is the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. So we have pain or nociceptive fibers coming up through here, and if the substantia gelatinosum is stimulated, then it will decrease pain, okay? And the message will not be sent up to the higher centers. If the substantia gelatinosum is inhibited, so it's the activity or perception of it is decreased, then the pain fiber will continue to go up to the brain. So that's the gate. That's where they get gate control. That gate mechanism is taking place right here. So I drew up a little cartoon scheme hoping that this would maybe help you understand this theory a little bit more. So if we take this same schematic, but we put it into cartoon and we say we've got our substantia gelatinosum sleeping Garfield right here. And down here we have the A delta C, or our little mice, and they represent pain. And A beta is our big dog, and he's representing any sensory stimulation. So if we have an inhibited structure here, sleeping Garfield, and the goal that the A delta C wants to do is get to the big refrigerator, the big T, the thalamus, and start causing some havoc, disruption of life, stealing our peace. So what will happen if these pain fibers get stimulated, as long as Garfield or the substantia gelatinosum is inhibited, the pain message will not get through to the higher centers, and or the pain will get through, to the higher centers, and you'll perceive pain. So what we want to do is stimulate this gate, or the sleeping Garfield, the substantia gelatinosum, so that it will stop this painful message coming through. So how do we do that? How do we do that? We can stimulate the A betas, which are the big dogs, by using pressure, touch, cold, sometimes heat, electric stim, rubbing the area, and that then will result in sleeping Garfield, substantia gelatinosum, being excited and then goes after the mice. Only one message can get through, so the mice aren't going to get through because Garfield is busy chasing after them. So the message from the A beta, or the big dog, will get through up to the thalamus and the higher centers of the brain. So maybe that will help you kind of remember what stimulates, what inhibits, and what happens when the substantia gelatinosum is inhibited or stimulated. The next three are called descending pathways of gate control. These came after the gate control theory, just kind of expounding on them. The descending endogenous opiate theory is this one. And we can see that it's really similar to the gate control system, all right, coming up to the brain. But the endogenous opiate theory says that we agree that with the gate theory, but we also believe that there are other structures being stimulated at the higher centers in the brainstem. So the raphe nucleus, the periaqueductal gray matter are part of the descending endogenous opiate theory, saying that when these structures are stimulated, that it causes a release of endogenous opiates from these areas, and that affects the thalamus and decreases the sensation of pain. All right, so it's a higher center, and then it decreases, it sends a message back down the spinal tract, so that's why it's called descending. Another theory is the central control trigger theory, and it's a little modification of the gate control theory. It involves all the original gating mechanisms plus enkephalin release, and I believe there's a schematic of this coming up. Yep. So we have all of this is the same as gate control, but it's saying that it's also causing, when this takes place, there is a release of enkephalins from the higher centers. All right. Pretty similar to the descending theory. The neurometric matrix theory of pain is an addition again to the gate control. It says, yes, we agree with this, but also pain is a multidimensional or biophysical, psychological, or psychosocial event. Genetics will determine or can participate in determining a person's neural matrix, which is modified during life by sensory experiences, psychological factors, prior pain experiences, emotional events, life stresses, and etc. So that they can't just isolate pain out and it becomes a strictly physiological event. It is a psychosocial event determined by genetics. Somewhat. Also, the treatment goal then through the neuromatrix theory of pain is to decrease anything that's interpreted as the body being endangered. So this can be several different ways. One that we will use in therapeutic modalities is that we'll decrease pain with cold. So we decrease the ability to totally sense pain using the gate control theory. We stimulate the A betas with cold, and then we start to introduce therapeutic exercise. The followers of this theory then would say that you have decreased the threat of pain or that the body is endangered with the cold, and then doing exercise, which will increase movement and return to function, and that psychologically that's making a big difference too, and that's why it's put under the neuromatrix theory of pain. So hopefully that helps you understand the theories, and that you'll be able to explain a little bit more how the therapeutic modalities decreases pain.